Hello there! Welcome to the first episode of GiGi and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm Gigi.
And I'm JoJo.
And welcome to our Bizarre Adventure. Now, as you may have already guessed, we are both rather big fans of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the both manga and anime created by the wonderful and boyishly handsome Araki himself. So, in this show, we are going to start with, basically, it's honestly just my opinions. If anything, it's JoJo's Bizarre Opinions. It's GiGi and JoJo's Bizarre Opinions at best.
I
have a lot of opinions. And if you disagree with our opinions, I frankly don't care.
Yeah.
But also our opinions, I think, are also very subject to change, especially because we are starting off strong with our first episode today by ranking the individual JoJo's themselves. But of course, we just met two new ones.
We did just meet two new ones.
We know so little about them. So their ranking on the tier list will probably just be a temporary ranking until they move up or down.
I feel bad ranking them at this point because we've literally gotten a single chapter to meet both of them.
I already love them so much more than Jonathan, though.
Yeah, they in a single chapter they gave like so much more character than
in
Jonathan.
A single
in all
chapter,
of
they
this
have
entire
so
series.
much
It's
more.
So bad.
They have so many more character traits than Jonathan Joestar even ever did when he was introduced.
I know.
He was introduced as a gentleman who loves his woman and loves his family. And then they were literally like, hold on, here are two new twins. You get to know almost nothing about them other than the fact that they love Dua Lipa.
Yeah, they're ballers.
They're queer icons.
Yeah, they really are.
All right. So let's start at the beginning with Jonathan Joestar.
Yeah.
Now, I do have a couple opinions on Jonathan Joestar. And I guess the first thing I want to start with is that he is an overall wholesome guy. You know, he's very, very cute, very sweet, loves Erina, loves to respect people, has horrible, horrible house manners, though. George.
I think he gets better by the time he's an adult.
Oh, you really think so?
I do. He becomes a full-on gentleman. He really embodies it, I feel
But do
like,
you
by
think
the
he
end.
would have done that without Dio?
No.
Do you think he would have done that without Dio being there and George always being like, Dio is better than you?
No.
And he came from a horrible home.
No. I think if Dio wasn't there, Jonathan would be a deadbeat.
So honestly,
Dio
not
saved
only
his
do we
life.
have Dio to blame as being the entire villain, but the problem is that he came in to save Jonathan Joestar's life entirely. Jonathan was just gonna get married.
Yeah. He wasn't
was just
even gonna get married.
No, he was gonna marry Erina.
Nah, I don't know.
They were gonna find each other.
That's what you think.
But without Dio kissing her, was he really that high stakes into it?
Yeah. Something else would have gone wrong. They needed that. Like, they would have gotten into a fight on their own. It's better for the fight to be blamed on Dio.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could reconcile years later when she nursed him back from his horrible full-body third-degree burns.
Just like Susie does.
Just like Susie does. Except...
And then she does not get repaid even as nicely.
Well, you'll get there when we get there.
Oh, you wanna immediately start defending Joseph Joestar
I wasn't even
right
gonna
now.
defend him.
You were immediately
I
gonna
wasn't gonna defend him necessarily. I was gonna throw Susie under the bus.
And why is that?
Because she nurses him back to health for like 4 months and doesn't tell anybody else that he's alive.
I don't think
No, she did. It was on purpose.
Yeah, it was totally on purpose.
Like,
she did it because she wanted to hang out with him. She's
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah. They show up at his funeral and he's like, you didn't tell everyone, and she's like, I just wanted to spend time with you.
That is
like,
not what she says.
Yes, she is.
But it is heavily implied that she just kind of forgot to send the message.
The letters that to all of his friends and family that he was actually not dead.
Did she get a save the date for his funeral?
Probably,
Did she
because
get
they
an
showed up
invitation?
right at it.
Did she
Like,
get an invitation? No. That implies that she got the invitation and she was like, Joseph, let's go to your
let's go on
funeral
vacation.
and jump scare them all by
No,
you being alive.
Because he didn't know about it. He shows up and he's like,
But
who
that's
died?
what I'm saying.
Like,
So she didn't tell him, but she tricked him into wanting to do this?
she literally must have been like, hey, like now that you're better, we should go on vacation or go see your family or something, and it'll be a fun surprise. You'll just show up like all better. And he was like, yeah, that seems cool. And then they show up at his funeral.
All right, we've gotten a little sidetracked.
we
Let's get
already
back
got
to
sidetracked.
the matter at hand.
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Mm-hmm. So he is the first JoJo, and even though I love him, he is the worst JoJo. He's gonna be at the bottom of the tier list.
Objectively.
Just
yes.
like he had the least amount of time. I don't know how many chapters it is, but like in the anime it's like 10 episodes that he gets, and then every other JoJo gets like 30 to 40. Like
Well, it was, it's the pilot, it's the introduction for the part. It's just like, real quick, we'll give you a couple episodes, see if it actually even works.
Yeah, and it does work, and you get hooked, and you fall in love with Jonathan because he's a good guy or whatever, and then he's gone. He's ripped from your arms, tragically.
And I want to bring something up about it, which is that he is ripped from your arms very tragically, but he's constantly given back to us no matter what. Yeah. He is always there because he is the body of the work. Yeah. Case in point, Dio's literal. Yeah. And honestly, I hate to admit, but I have to blame Jonathan for getting into this mess. He's the one who is like, I need to hold Dio's severed head until we drown together.
He's literally like, my brother will die. You'll die in my arms.
And Dio was like,
Dio's like squirming. He's like, God damn it, no! Like
Dio's like, these are gonna be my arms now. He was like, oh, you thought you could kill me right here? You're mine now.
I guess. So the good thing about Jonathan, good if I guess you knew him as a person, but not very good as like a well-written character, is that he doesn't have any bad traits whatsoever. He is literally just like a golden boy, which is obviously not a realistic and well-written character, but it's good because he starts the series calls it the Joestar curse, but like it's not a curse. It's pushed forward by the fact that every other Joestar carries Jonathan's like golden will, and like even though they are all like screw ups and like do a lot various degrees of things wrong, like at their core they are all heroes just like him, and that's why they always like stop the villain, because of like his spirit like carrying on through the bloodline. And so like I think it is really good for the series as a whole for him to be the first one and to also like literally be perfect, because then every other one of all the other JoJo's can then have their flaws and be real people and stuff, but then at their core still carry his like never-ending golden spirit that transcends time and carries through all of his bloodline. And so I like that about him. I do like that. That's the one good thing about him being perfect.
Honestly, I feel like the moral of this that I have learned is that we just like characters that are deeply flawed people. And when Jonathan Joestar comes in and he is a perfect little boy who just loves his woman, loves his dog, loves his family, and I'm just like, I just start yawning. I'm like, I need someone else. I need something a little more exciting. Yeah. Which is really where part 2 comes in.
We get, because Joseph is really just Jonathan if Jonathan was fun. Like,
if Jonathan was a himbo, like objectively a huge himbo.
Literally, yeah.
All right. So, all in all, Jonathan has to remain at the bottom of our list.
So is he in the F tier?
He is in bottom tier, and
so
I think
what
that
is
bottom tier.
Like,
let me say this. I think that bottom tier, our last tier, is just going to be called Jonathan. Yeah. Because I think that Jonathan isn't bottom tier, but he's just Jonathan tier.
I agree. He does have the best name,
bottom tier is just Jonathan tier.
Yeah, it's the floor, but the floor is like way higher than most other series ceilings.
It was
so,
just
like,
to rise up from. It's a starting
He's
point
the
to build up.
foundation.
Yes, he is the building block of the Joestar lineage.
And that's another thing. I guess this isn't really about him necessarily, but like, I mean, JoJo started in the 80s. This was like when like anime and manga was just about like a huge like buff hero dude like coming in and like kicking everyone's ass and like saving everybody and being the hero.
The North Star.
Yeah, literally. Like all series were like that for the most part. Like, and so for Jonathan to show up, save the day, but then still die at the end, and then have it be like, not Jonathan's dead, but JoJo's isn't over. JoJo's is coming, like the series is continuing even though the main character's dead. I think that that's really cool, and obviously it's the best. I mean, it's not the best. It's one of the best things about JoJo's is how we get all the different protagonists, and how once like a part ends, the story continues, but you get new characters. But I think Araki taking that risk with Jonathan in the first place in the 80s is like commendable or
very
like,
monumental
cool and like a big thing. And Jonathan deserves credit for that. He deserves credit for dying.
Oh yes, Jonathan is kind of like the Lord himself, where he just lived to die for our sins. And now we just look up to him forever. Yeah. See, JoJo's is actually a metaphor for the It's just like Evangelion.
It's just like Evangelion for real.
It's just like Evangelion for real.
And Shigechi is Shinji.
You're right, he is. If anyone was going to be Shinji, it would be Shigetsu.
Yeah, it would. Anyways.
All right.
So,
Now
Jonathan tier. Let's move up.
Let's move up from Jonathan tier, and let's go to part 2, where we get Joseph Joestar.
Joseph Joestar.
Now, do you want to start leading our conversation on him? Because I know you've got some pretty hot takes.
I will. He is my triple S tier ranking. He is the best JoJo in my opinion. Part 2 is not the best part, but Joseph Joestar is the best JoJo. I just think he's so much fun. I think that his shtick of being like the cockiest, most arrogant person in the world, and then like screwing something up so that the enemy is like, this dude like is literally stupid, like I'm gonna kill him instantly, and then the enemy goes to attack him, and Joseph is like, I knew you were gonna step on that tile, and 18 years ago I put a trap on that tile, and now that trap is going off, and it's gonna cause 14 other things to happen, and the 13th one is gonna kill you. And it's
And
just
then it
so,
works.
and then it works, and then it
And then
happens
it
exactly
works.
like he said. And then the other person's
And he's like, you're going to say this.
yeah, and then he's like, and next you're gonna say, how did you know that? And the person says, how did
How
you
did
know
you know
that?
that?
And then they go, what? And then they're like, ah.
And they get the weird freeze frame where
Yeah.
they're like, ugh, how did you know I was going to say that? I'm like, bro, he just told you. Didn't you hear him say it? Why didn't you just stop yourself from saying it?
In my mind, I think the way it's supposed to work, and like it doesn't come across that way because of the way anime and manga is as a medium, but I think the way it's supposed to work is he says next you say, and then he says it basically like at the exact same time that they say it. Like they say it simultaneously. Like, so he's still predicting it because obviously he knows what they're saying because he's saying it simultaneously with them, but they're also saying it and they don't realize that they're saying the same thing until both them and Joseph stop saying it. That's how I feel like it should go. Or he says it like even half a second ahead of them. Something like that. I like Joseph because he has my favorite, like, defeating the final boss of all of the parts. Like, Jonathan defeats Dio fair and square and then dies, but like with Dio in his arms.
With love and respect.
Yeah, Jotaro just kicks the crap out of Dio, like full no stop. Josuke uses the power of friendship and like a bunch of people. Giorno becomes God. Jolene literally also uses the power of friendship, but then like resets the whole universe. Like the moral is they always do it as a team and with power and all sorts of crap. And Joseph was sitting in a volcano about to literally be decapitated. And then by pure luck, the volcano didn't go off by luck. Volcano went off because of the redstone. But then they're launched in the air, and Cars is like, oh, well, I'm just gonna like leave. Like, I'm gonna like fly away because I can do that. And he goes to do that, and Joseph's arm that Cars had severed like 5 minutes ago because of the exploding volcano just shoots up into the air and like choke slams Cars and makes him like stuck on the rock with Joseph. And Cars is like, oh my God, like, how did this happen? Like, how did you predict that? And Joseph is like, I'm just that good. And then in his inner monologue, he was like, that was a complete accident. Like, it's just so funny. He was just gonna lose. He just was. He just was like, all right, well, I did everything I could. I have accepted defeat. And then the power of pure luck saved his ass.
He was
and
willing
that's
to die
so
for everyone.
funny.
He was willing to die for all of them. He was literally like, I'll die. I will save Granny Erina. I will save the entire Speedwagon Foundation.
Yeah.
He was
Stroheim
willing-
and all the Nazis, I'll save them too.
He was gonna save Lisa before even realizing that she was his mother, just when he thought that she was a hot babe that he was peeking on.
Nice.
Back when she was a hot babe and not his mom.
I mean, she was his mom the whole time.
Yeah, but there was a fine line that he crossed.
I would like to also, again, not to continue to defend his terrible behavior.
Oh,
but,
really?
like,
Yeah, let's go.
But Lisa's whole thing is that because she's a hormone master, she literally looks like she's in like her early 30s. Like, she looks like 5 years older than him. Like, there's no way he could have known that she was his mom. Like,
No, I mean, yeah.
but maybe he just shouldn't peek on people.
Maybe he
that
just
was the
shouldn't
moral.
be creeping
Yeah.
on women.
Maybe that was the moral.
Especially where Suzy Q was literally right there. Like, she comes up to him right after that, and it's very clear that she's into him at that point and that he's into her, and he's still just like, yeah, I'm just looking at your boss, but,
Well,
hey!
he's a young man. He's full of spirit.
He is full of stupidity. He is an entire himbo. And also, I kind of just want to bring up not only that he is very stupid, involving things such as like running away from battles when he's like, the famous Joestar
Yeah,
move, I'll run
the
away.
Joestar secret technique where he just sprints in the opposite direction.
Yes, where he just hightails it. And that is so funny. But that is not that clever. But then somehow it always is, and he always ends up making the right choices. And also, I love that scene where it's like the news reporter woman or something, and he's like, why would I care about that woman if you're gonna kill her? I don't care. And it's like, he's like, I'm tricking them. And I'm like, no, you don't actually care. He doesn't care about her.
Yeah, but he does, because then Straight-So goes to like slit her throat, and he's like, wait, like he was like, I was just doing a bit, like.
I was just kidding. I was just kidding.
Because it's the same thing with the running away. Is like he seems like he's running away, but really he's like
Making up
buying
a new
time
plan.
and like trying to come up with a new plan and forcing the enemy to chase him into a place where he can have a more advantageous position.
Really, really entertaining that he ended up using all of his skills, all of his cleverness in order to cheat his way out of, you know, the Pillar Men. He defeats them all. He tricks them all in different ways.
Yeah, he does.
And then he cheats on his wife.
That's beautiful.
And then she finds out. Like, how did he defeat these literal gods? But he could not cover his tracks on that one. He did not cover his tracks.
He covered his tracks for a bit. He covered his tracks until Josuke was 16 and Joseph was like 89 years old and had dementia. Like
Yeah.
he probably let it slip by accident.
He let himself slip.
Yeah, he probably was just like, oh, we
And-
gotta go see Josuke after this, and she was like, who?
Yeah, wait. As a Hammond user, how does he not still look like Lisa? How does he get old and dementia? Is it because he starts using Hermit Purple and he lets his Hammond slip?
That's actually.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
like
that's
he stops using it and then ages?
Yeah, no, that's literally like the canon reason is that like Lisa and like Straight-So and stuff are like hormone masters, and they've like and they like train with it every day, and they've spent their whole life to like focus its like positive properties on their body.
It's like
Joseph
breathing.
learns it for like 2 months so that he can kick the crap out of some gods, and then is like, well, I probably don't need this anymore, and then never does it again.
Hey, he does it once in part 3.
Okay, but like
He does it once.
He still has the ability to do it, but he doesn't train, and it's not like part
not
of his
using it
lifestyle
anymore.
anymore. He literally becomes like a real estate tycoon. Like he moves to America and like literally just buys houses. He doesn't care about hormone. Like
He's just sleeping with single women who are looking for a new house.
yeah. I also another thing about Joseph that I like is, and I guess Jotaro is the same way, but like Jotaro is like the face of the series, and in all the parts that Jotaro's in, he has like a very, very main role. But Joseph, I guess, started it. He's in part 2, and he's in part 3, and he's in part 4, and then he's not in 5 or 6, but it's confirmed that he is alive during
Yes,
part 6.
he's
so
still
he's
there.
still out there. He's like so old. He's like 110 by the time part 6 happens or
Which
something.
I like have to give him credit for, because he's like, Jonathan does not survive, and then we get Joseph, and not only did we get Joseph to survive, but he is the longest standing survivor
forever.
since part 2. He's been around since he dealt with the Nazis
Yeah.
and Stronheim. He dealt with all of this stuff, and now he's just old and he has a new baby. He has a new invisible baby to
Yeah.
take care of, which also definitely rekindled his marriage with Susie.
I
That's the only thing that I don't think he even tried. I don't think he tried to get better, but I think he brought a baby home and Susie was like,
See, I like the bit of him bringing the baby home and her being like, "Oh, this is another
Oh,
affair
another one?
child." Like, and
Where'd
him
you
being
find that
like,
one?
and him being like, "No," and she's like, "Oh, you just expect me to believe you found a baby with a magic ability? Like, those don't just fall out of trees. Like,
you
clearly
found
it's
an
yours."
invisible baby
Yeah.
just on the streets of
Yeah.
Morio. Likely story.
And he can't even make it uninvisible to prove that it doesn't look like him. Like, he's really like in a tight spot. I
The
feel
baby's
like.
only going to appear occasionally, if at all.
But I don't know. I just love him. I just think he's so funny. I think he's so smart and so funny. And then in part 3, he continues to be smart and funny, but in like a mentorship kind of role. And then in part 4, he like does his best and is old and is kind of not a hindrance, but like obviously isn't as helpful as he's able to be in part 2 and 3, but still does what he can. Like when he slits his wrists in the water to save the invisible baby, like he can barely do anything, and he's still willing to do everything that he can.
Absolutely.
He's a G.
And that's the Jonathan in him.
It is, yeah. The cheating on his wife isn't, and the peeking on his mom isn't, but the saving babies and killing gods, that is.
That's all
the
Jonathan. That's the Joe Star we love. All right. So I know that for you, Joseph is like an S tier type character,
He's my favorite one.
but I feel like I could agree with you in putting him at an A tier.
Okay. What is it? S-A-B Jonathan? S-A-B-C Jonathan? Like,
Yes, SABC Jonathan. Oh, actually, real quick, I do want to bring up something else about Joseph, which is that I love how close he is with Holly. and I love how much he loves his daughter.
Yeah.
That despite being a stupid himbo and being a silly little guy, he also loves his family, and he shows that
So
Joe
much.
Star power of like, I love my family, and not only do I love my family to the point that I'm going to come help Holly when she needs this help, but I'm then gonna call my friend to come all the way from Egypt to literally get my grandson out of prison. And then he watches his grandson actively just disrespect Holly the whole time, and he's just like, don't talk to her that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every single time he talks about a member of his family, it's always in the highest regard. And he treats, because it's like Speedwagon is like his uncle. Like, so when he's a kid, it's Speedwagon and Erina raising him, and he like loves them more than anything in the entire world. Like, and then he gets Susie Q, who even though like he does cheat on her, which I guess isn't very loving.
He does care about
like,
her.
he does definitely like care about her, and like they have a happy life together. Like, and he goes all the way to Morio to see, like I guess it's not to see Josuke, he's going because, like, Jotaro called him for help or whatever, but, like,
Well,
it's also, I think...
it is actually even implied that he wanted to meet Josuke,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like, when he found out about it, he was like, I need to meet him.
Yeah,
Like,
and Jotaro's like, no, you're a dementia-ridden old man, I'm gonna go.
yeah,
Like,
because Jotaro's like, I will deal with it.
Yeah.
You won't right now. And only then does he call him in after.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that leads us right into Jotaro.
yeah, the face of the series.
Now, something I really like about Jotaro is that he is a completely accurate representation of like a rebellious little emo boy who like doesn't entirely really need to be, but he is.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, oh, my mom's a little bitch, and like I don't want her little kissy goodbye. And then literally her life is in danger, and he is like, okay, I'm going to Egypt now.
He's like, I'm doing 80 days around the world,
I
let's
am
go,
crossing
like, right
the
now.
entire world to save her. You know, he literally is mad. He doesn't think his mom cares about him enough, even though she's cute as hell, apparently. Like why is he so rebellious? His mom doesn't care about him enough. She's giving you kisses goodbye.
No, he knows.
His dad's out.
Being a famous jazz musician.
So he never has time with his father. Maybe he just has very serious daddy issues.
I would
That's
believe
actually
that, yeah.
more likely than anything. I think Jotaro misses having a strong father figure, and he has gotten too used to Holly constantly being like, I want to kiss you goodbye. Like, I don't have anyone to give my affection to. And he's like, ugh.
Also, his whole persona is being like the toughest guy around. And so
I
like,
don't know. Holly did have flashbacks of when he was a sweetie pie.
I was about to say, so up until the point where he stops being a sweetie pie, at some point
up until puberty.
yeah, he hits puberty and then realizes, oh man, I got all these muscles, like,
No,
what am I
he
gonna
hits
do with
puberty
them?
and he's flooded with testosterone, and he's like, oh god, you know what? I gotta use my muscles.
Yeah, so he can't, like, and also, like, it gets people to like him. Like, all the girls like him, all the dudes respect
But
him.
he doesn't
like,
even want the girl's attention.
But that's not the point isn't that he wants it. The point is that
He
he
has
has
it.
it. And he wants to be in a position where everyone idolizes and like looks up to him so that he can push them away because he doesn't give a shit about them. And so if bitches saw his mom giving him a kiss goodbye, they ain't gonna be impressed by that. Like, he's gotta keep up appearances. But
I don't know. I would be impressed by a strong man who loves his mama,
well,
loves his mom, and gets a little kissy.
you don't live in Japan in the 90s. I don't know what
Okay,
to tell
well,
you. Like,
Holly's just really nice, and if I could have Holly as my mom, that would be really, really cool because she's really cute and sweet, and like, that sounds lovely, but whatever.
I mean, listen, Jotaro, even though he says that to her, has the like physical ability to push her off and never does. And when she gets sick and doesn't come to greet him at the door that one time, he literally is like,
Where's my kissy?
what's wrong? Like, what's
Where's my kissy?
He like goes into panic mode. He's just like, something's wrong. Like, he's like, I need my kiss goodbye.
I need my goodbye kiss. I need my have a good day at school kiss.
But I think that's is a good lead into the thing that I actually like most about Jotaro. And it's just that because he always has the stoic badass, like I don't know. I feel like the stereotype for a protagonist like him would be like 90% of the story he has his tough guy appearances, and then like at the end, like when they're all at the airport saying goodbye or something, he like starts crying and he's like, thanks guys, like you blah 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 blah. But he never does that. He never cracks, he never breaks. He's always got like his stoic face. He's always all about just being the big tough, like I gotta do what I gotta do, and and I'll make sacrifices for everyone else type thing. But it's not like who he really is. He loves Holly and is willing to do all this stuff for him. In like later parts, he like the one theory that I like referencing like a lot is him getting PTSD from the Dio fight. and then like that's why certain things later in the series when he reacts like a little bit too slow are like due to that. Like in part 6, I mean, I think this is like the clearest example of it like being shown on his face because he like genuinely looks scared. But like in part 6, when he freezes time and Poochie has thrown all the knives at Jolene, and he literally like has a flashback to when Dio does it, and he's just like, Dio, no, like he literally like freaks out, and then doesn't kill Poochie because he freaks out so badly. He's using Dio's tricks. Like Dio was so dangerous. I have to save my daughter. Like, I don't know. I like reading into his actions and being able to like extrapolate parts of his character from that, since he doesn't show it and like we don't get a lot of his internal monologues or a lot of his feelings or anything like that. But there is like so much more to him than meets the eye.
I think that's also where his parenting style even comes in as well. Because on one hand, he 100% cares about Jolene. He always shows that he cares about Jolene and that he cares about her life and that she is safe. But on the other hand, he does punch her in the face.
And he was a deadbeat dad.
And he was a deadbeat dad. And it's very clear that he wasn't there for her for periods of time, nor did he care about his wife enough.
Yeah. Not only did he not care about his wife, Araki doesn't care about his wife.
Araki doesn't even know
the wife doesn't even,
who Jolene's mom
the wife
is.
gets to be in a single panel. We don't get her name. We don't know anything
She
about
is
her.
half of one of the most important JoStars at this point. Like, she is half of the part, like, this character, for part 6, such an important part. This woman created the character, and she's not even there. Araki created the character. Araki is Jolene's real mama.
Yeah. I mean, we get so much info on all the other JoJo spouses. Like, we get a lot on Arina, we get a lot on Suzy Q, we get a lot on Anasui, if you want to count him. Like, and then Jolene's mom / Jotaro's wife is literally just some woman who exists for 2 seconds and doesn't even get a name.
She's literally just some woman that Jotaro impregnated.
Yeah. You don't know anything about her. Does she
And
even
that's
like
exactly-
dolphins?
I'm sure she doesn't. I'm sure.
How could Jotaro do that?
Maybe that's why he did it. He became a marine biologist just to spite her.
I forgot where we were now. But oh yeah, he's a deadbeat dad, but not because he's a deadbeat, but because his job, I guess half of his job is being a marine biologist, and then the other half is him like fighting dangerous stand users. And so he was like, if dangerous stand users knew I had a daughter, they would go after and kill her. So I have to be a deadbeat to keep her safe. And I'm like, yeah, I guess maybe you just shouldn't have had a daughter then. But whatever. Like,
Maybe you just shouldn't have had more family members for this family that has a curse.
yeah.
Maybe you should just cut off the bloodline.
Yeah, you should have
Stop
ended with
making
Jotaro.
more.
Should have ended with Jotaro.
Like, why didn't he even think about that? Like, he was like, now I've been tasked with this for the rest of my life. Instead, I will make Jolene and then make her deal with Dio.
Yeah.
Well, clearly he didn't want that, but still, it's very... She has to deal with it regardless. Like, Dio is built into the foundation of their family, right into Jonathan as the baseline foundation, and his body is the foundation.
Sure. He means well. And he just is one of those people, I mean, he's one of those characters, one of those people who's like, I can carry the whole burden, and like, the people I love, I'm not even gonna tell them about it, because telling them about it would cause them undue stress. And so I'm gonna keep it a secret from everybody and then carry all of this burden by myself and handle it all by myself. And then like, it's not always the best option, Jotaro. Like, you gotta believe in your friends and family, dude. Like, we get it. You can stop time, but like,
Good grief.
like, your friends and family love you. Like,
And then we get right into part 4, where your friends and family do love you.
yes, literally.
But let's start by, where do you want Jotaro on this tier list?
I want Jotaro to be my A, I think.
You want him to be an A tier?
I think A tier, yeah. Are they just all gonna be an A tier?
No. Because I'm thinking that Joseph might even be B tier.
Well, I
For
will
Jotaro
not
to be A
possibly
tier.
agree with that.
I will not possibly.
I was gonna say literally the opposite. If Joseph's gonna be an A tier, Jotaro's gotta be in B tier. Like,
Oh, is that what you think?
That's what I was gonna say. Like,
Wow. Okay.
but
But I don't know. I mean, we just talked about how Jotaro is the literal poster boy, and
Yeah,
he is such
that-
a main. He's a main point of Stardust Crusaders, and Joseph is still a large part of Stardust Crusaders. So honestly, he just fades kind of into the shadows. He fades into the background, but he's still there.
He doesn't get a lot of fights. He kind of becomes the Speedwagon of Part 3.
Yeah, but he's the only one who gets to change his outfit.
That's true. I love him in his swimsuit.
He's like the only one with actual like more drip. Like they all just have the same drip to the point that Josuke just keeps finding tailors who just keep redoing his school uniform. But
I love that bit when they walk out of the tailor and Jotaro's just like, oh, it's crazy that they had a Japanese school uniform in your size. Like, oh my god. Oh, but he does have, Jotaro's the greatest line in the entire series, when they fight Wheel of Fortune.
What, you're gonna be the protagonist of Part 3? Come on.
And then Jotaro jumps out of the ground like a freaking Diglett because he had dug under him somehow.
Jotaro also comes out of the ground in a second fight because he comes out of the ground that time that Dio's trying to crawl into the manhole cover and Jotaro's like, this place is taken.
That one's the best one because it literally like doesn't make any sense no matter how you slice it. Like Dio gets like launched across the street and then it starts crawling away and Jotaro's like supposed to be far away from him and then crawls finds a sewer grate, like lifts it up, and as soon as he lifts it up, Jotaro is just there. He's just looking right at, like looks him dead in the eyes. He's like, where do you think you're going? Like, it's so funny. All right, maybe I can live with them both in A tier.
Okay, you think that they can be beside each other in A tier?
They can be friends in A tier, yeah.
Okay. Now we can go into the power of friendship with Josuke Higashikata.
Josuke Higashikata. Here he is. He's
now,
that guy.
He's my sweet, sweet, sweet angel baby, but he's also a literal bastard. Not only is he, like, a little monster, but he is Joseph's bastard child.
I was about to say, he is very clearly Joseph's son.
And it is so clear, not only in how much I love when you get to see, like, them animated side by side, where they have the exact same smile and, like, the way that they're drawn in that way, but just they do the exact same things. I think one of my favorite showmanships of this is when Josuke robs Joseph for his money in that one scene where he like puts it together and steals all the money.
Because he tricks him with the power of Joseph's love for his family. He's like, oh, like, Dad, like, I put a picture of us in your wallet so that you can always remember us. And Joseph's like, oh, my wallet. And goes to take it out and look at it. And he's like, oh, thank you, son. And Josuke's like, zap. Like,
my money. And honestly, that's the most Joseph type thing I could ever see him doing. Yeah. And Josuke's also a child at that point too, which makes me give him more credit and it makes me like Josuke more. Because Joseph, as more of an adult, is acting like a child, but Josuke's 15.
Yeah, he's literally
He's literally like in high school right now, in formative years of his life, and he has beef with the one of the most famous manga artists in the entire like world at that point, who has just somehow moved to Morio and decided to live down the street from him.
Yeah, him and Rohan having beef is the funniest thing. Like, imagine if, I can't even come up with an example. Like, imagine if you lived in a small town and then, like, Kobe Bryant moved in, like, down the street one day, and then every day you were walking to school and he just opened his window and, like, cussed at you and was like, hey, kid, like, you come over here after school today because we have beef. Like, we're gonna play a dice game and I'm gonna beat your ass at it. Like,
I'm gonna prove that you're cheating. Just trust me.
Yeah, like.
I'm gonna set my house on fire. I'm gonna let my house burn down if it means I can prove you're.
That happens, and then the next fight where Josuke and Rohan are together is the Highway Star fight, and they run into each other on the bus at the beginning of that arc. And so, like, Rohan's like, come sit with me, and Josuke's like, I don't really want to, but whatever. And they're sitting there, and he's like, oh, you know the house fire? And Josuke was like, oh yeah, like, that's weird, like, sorry about that. And Rohan's like, oh, don't worry about it, but the only issue is that I now have to get a replacement for my exact copy of the furniture from Pretty Women. Like, it costs 13.8 million yen, and I have to get, like, an exact replica again because my exact replica of the furniture burnt down. And Josuke doesn't comment on this at all, but why does Rohan have replica of the furniture from Pretty Women? Like...
Honestly, I don't even.
Is that a very strange comment? Like, it just is.
Maybe that's like his main source of inspiration.
I forget what the name of his manga is. Something Dark Boy, Star Dark Boy, something.
Yeah, because it's the.
It's the character that looks like his.
It's Heaven's Door.
Yeah, it looks like Heaven's Door, but I forget what it's actually called. Dark Star Boy or something. Star Dark Boy, something like that. That's inspired by Pretty Women. I hope so. That's gonna be canon in my mind. But. Okay, wait.
I also think that it is important to note that Josuke is Araki's favorite.
Yes,
In the Araki top 10 list that was released, he said that Josuke was his favorite.
favorite character too, not just JoJo.
Not just favorite JoJo. These were all of his favorite characters up to whatever part it was.
I think that came out in.
It
had to have been part 5.
Yes.
I think it was at the end of part 5 that came out.
Yeah.
But between parts 1 and 5, out of every character Rocky ever made, Josuke's number 1. So that definitely gets some points. What I like about Josuke is that he looks like a delinquent, and like that's like his whole shtick. Is that like, especially at the beginning of the part before he learns how to like cover his anger, is that he's got like his golden heart or whatever, but everyone thinks he's a delinquent because of his hair and because of everything like that. And then every once in a while he'll get worked up and act like a delinquent and like reinforce the stereotype that everybody believes in. But like, it's not who he is. He is a good person, even though he gets worked up sometimes. But he also doesn't like let it get him down. Like he doesn't walk around town being like, everyone thinks I'm a deadbeat, but I'm actually a good guy. Like no, he walks around town and he's like, yeah, like sometimes I'm a little shithead. Like, but for the most part, I'm pretty nice, and I got my giant pink stand to defend me if anyone ever beefs with me. Like, I don't know. I just think it's very funny.
Josuke definitely has that golden heart where he still has that little bit of anger issues if anyone pushes him, which I do love to see. It's very Joseph as well, where you get to see that in so many parts where Joseph will just start fighting some dude because it made him angry.
Yeah.
And Josuke does that. But what I think is really important for Josuke as a character specifically is also his two side JoBros being Okuyasu and Koichi, because they're two polar opposites. And I feel like Okuyasu is often the bad influence on Josuke, where Josuke wants to get into hijinks and like do schemes with Okuyasu. And then Koichi's like, well, we gotta study for the test, and my girlfriend and I are gonna go out on a date. And Josuke's like, yeah, that's great. Anyways, we're gonna go hang out over at that metal telephone tower. We're gonna go hang out at the telephone tower, and we're gonna go find an alien. Be right back. And Koichi's just like, okay.
Well,
they go to Pearl Jam without Koichi. Why did they go to eat the Italian food without even inviting him? I feel so bad.
Maybe they were on a date. Like,
she could have come.
They could have double dated with Koichi.
They could have double dated with Koichi. Okuyasu and Josuke, and then Koichi and yes.
No, I agree. I mean, it's because Koichi's a reliable guy.
Yes,
like,
and that is why he becomes Jotaro's JoBro.
Yeah,
that is why he gets adopted. Not only was he Josuke's, but then he gets adopted by Rohan, and then adopted by Jotaro into the entire Joestar family. So Koichi just happens to be walking on the street, bumps into Jotaro's crotch, and then now is forever indebted in this family lineage. He is just constantly there.
That's the funniest like scene in the anime as well, because he's literally not paying attention, and then it makes like the sound effect that he hit a brick wall, and then it's just Jotaro's dick.
Yeah, what is he? Why is it like stone?
Yeah, what does he eat?
What is he eating? Do you think he eats fish?
No.
Do you think that he like just can't eat any fish?
No, he's a marine biologist. That goes against his code.
Yeah. Do you think so?
I do think so.
Interesting.
Anyways, talking about Josuke though, another thing that I like about Josuke, and I think it's showing the Joseph in him, is that okay, for one, I think Crazy Diamond sets itself up to be a very creative like stand, like its ability lets you like use it in a lot of very interesting ways.
It's our first healer, and I think that that's what's really important about it, especially.
That's true. But he can't heal himself, which I think is also important about it. But also, he just uses it in very creative ways. Like you see the like Joseph smartness, like outsmarting people, coming out with plans on the fly, in some of the ways that he uses Crazy Diamond. And the one that I always think of, and I feel like it's like a lot of people's like favorite one, is the highway star fight, and specifically the highway star fight where like he's on the motorcycle and he's about to crash into that woman pushing the baby across the like street, and he's just like, oh no, like I can't stop in time, so he just destroys the motorcycle, flings his body, like gets full air over the baby, and then just rebuilds the motorcycle under him. Like, that was so cool. Like, that was so smart. That was so cool. Like,
my other favorite example of that is when he does it in the first fight with Angelo, where he's saving his mom, and he puts the like latex glove inside of her.
Yeah, he punches through her body and puts the glove inside of her.
That one's cool.
What else? Oh, I also like the one where they're fighting Red Hot Chili Pepper, and Red Hot Chili Pepper grabs Okuyasu and like Koichi's freaking out because like that means Okuyasu's like about to be dead, and Josuke literally like as nonchalantly as like he was born just walks up to Okuyasu's severed hand and like is continuing to have another conversation and then just fixes it, and Okuyasu just whoop like right back to it. Just like Koichi's like freaking out and Josuke's like, it's fine. Like he doesn't even bother to say it's fine. He just
Don't even
fixes
worry
it.
about it, man.
He just fixes it. He doesn't even bother to say he's got this. Like
Nah. He didn't even have to tell you. You had to know that he had that.
And then like we started talking about part 4 being like power of friendship, and that is something that I like about part 4, and I guess about Josuke specifically, is that like in part 1, 2, and 3, every time they defeat a villain, the villain either dies or is like retired and just is no longer able to fight, like in basically every single case. But like almost every single person that the part 4 game fight just joins the game. They're just playing like an MMORPG. Like every time they defeat somebody, the person's like, please let me join your party. And they're like, all right, like, and so by the time they're like at the end, their party consists of like 13 stand users. Like, how could they ever lose to anything? Like,
I honestly like that change in part 4 where it's not like we're fighting them to kill them because they're the villain, but we're fighting them, we teach them a lesson, and then they realize that they, for the greater good, want to do the same things with you, or you become a rock like Angelo. I like when they literally fight that little kid with his, the kid who's the exact same height as Koichi, and then they
rock,
become
paper,
friends.
scissors kid?
No, not the Junkin kid, the one with the wooden doll.
The one whose like stand becomes Josuke.
Yes.
And then that's a good one.
And then the next time we see him is Koichi being like, sorry, we like basically killed you the other day. And he's like, nah, don't worry about it. Anyways, did you hear Rohan moved in?
literally.
Did you hear Rohan Kishime moved in, yo?
It's so funny.
And then they go hang out together. Like, it's so funny. It's so funny when the episode starts and they're like, hey, sorry, I almost killed you. And he's like, water
Don't worry
under the
about it.
bridge.
He's like, I need somebody to go
Anyway.
harass a manga artist with me. You coming or what?
You want to go hang out?
And it culminates in the end, where even though Josuke is, for the most part, the person who fights and defeats Kira, like, Jotaro and Koichi are the, like, get the final hit in. Like Kira's about to reset time, Koichi stops him with his hand, like, heavies his hand, and then Jotaro freezes time, beats his ass, and then an ambulance just runs him over. Nobody has to even kill him.
I know, that's one of my favorite parts.
The ambulance is the one that kills Kira.
Is that all of them, they had an entire team of stand users ready, all just standing there like, all right, it's time, let's kill this dude. And then the
really
emergency
bad
vehicle
ambulance
came
driver.
in and killed him.
Yeah.
So good.
Anyways,
I think I want Josuke in S tier.
I'm okay with that. I would love
Josuke is an S tier JoJo.
Josuke is an S tier JoJo. He has like my favorite parts of Joseph, while also being like cool and unique in his own ways, and then embodies the golden heart by making friends with everybody. And I just really like his design as well, like his heart, like
His boob window?
yeah, his boob window, and then his hair. I think are like you look at him and you're like, oh, what's up with this guy? Like.
So what you're saying is you're just a fan of Prince.
I am saying that. It's a separate point, but I guess it applies. So yeah.
All right. Now, let's get right into someone else with another really good boob window, Giorno Giovanna.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to start this off by saying that Giorno is not one of my favorites, really. But as someone with the name Gianna, I have been called Giovanna a number of times. So many times, in fact, that it has just become a good bit for me to be like, I guess I'm just Giorno Giovanna now at this point. Because no one can remember for some reason. I guess that every Italian name that starts with a G is just the exact same name over and over.
Giuseppe. I'm going to start calling you that.
All right. I had that coming.
But I kind of agree. Giorno isn't my favorite either, which is unfortunate because I guess the same reason as Jonathan. Like, I love them all, and so even though the lower tier ones are still very great, but I think Giorno specifically is, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Not like carried, because he still is great, but like the other members of the game, I feel like get like a lot of time to, like, you learn a lot about them and you get to see their reactions to stuff, and they're like teaching him the ropes, and he's like, his character is, he's like the stoic, quiet, like new guy who like like he's quiet, but not like in a badass Jotaro kind of way, but in like a examining the situation and then acting right when he needs to kind of way. And I don't know. I just feel like even though this probably isn't really true, I just feel like we don't get as much characterization for him as we do for a lot of the other JoJo's.
Well, I think that also comes from the fact that we don't get to really meet his family, because it's meant to be that Giorno doesn't have a family because he is one of Dio's children that is somehow just falls through the cracks. Like, Dio just didn't even think about it, didn't think about where he was planting his seed.
That's the funniest
He doesn't
thing.
have he doesn't have that kind of space in his mind. He's thinking about Poochie.
Well, that's the funniest thing about
He's
it.
thinking
is that,
about kissing
yeah,
Poochie.
especially with part 6 in mind, is that there's just 4 random women who Dio were like, the sex was good enough that you get to live. Goodbye.
Yes.
And then he kills everyone else who he ever comes across for the most part.
Everyone else, he's like, yeah, you can. I can't let you bring that onto anyone else. He teaches them a lesson.
But I think where Giorno shines, like really shines, are like the explicit like comparison scenes where you get to see him be either Jonathan or Dio, because he's just like he's a mixture of them, but the part 1 versions of them, which is why he's stoic and like not always quick to act and stuff. But then when he does act, it's always like swift and severe and always the right move. But like, for the most part, he's happy to like hang back and wait to see if he can like handle a situation normally, or if he has to bring the like hammer of death down on whatever he's facing. And you just get a good amount of both. You get a good amount of scenes where he's acting chivalrous and noble and is like willing to do something that isn't in his best interest just because it's the right thing to do. And then you have scenes where like somebody wronged him, and so he gives them a beatdown that lasts multiple pages or like 35 seconds in the anime. Like, and he says Muda.
He does.
He gets Dio's stand cry, which I think is cute.
I think he also often doesn't approach situations in a way where he knows the right thing to do, especially which comes from his child, like him being a child, like him being what, 14, and he is led by the gang. The gang themselves, all of the gang members themselves are actually the main characters. Like Bruno himself is more of the protagonist. He leads everyone. He acts like a main Joestar where he leads the group into battles and he knows more about what's happening. And Giorno has just become like his little sidekick who's just like, I'm anti-drugs. And honestly, Giorno is a really good representation of who Jonathan and Dio both are, because Jonathan would not want you to be selling drugs to kids, but Dio would want to gain control of the gang in order to do whatever selling and businesses he wants to do.
Yeah.
Rather than the things that Jonathan's side would disagree with. So it's almost like this two side by side creates this evil mastermind who's also a community service worker,
Yeah.
like a volunteer.
Because Jonathan would want to just tear down the gang and destroy everything that they stand for and be like, no more gain, no more evil. Whereas Dio, maybe not out of the goodness of his heart, but would at least realize that if he was just going to destroy the gang, like it wouldn't change like how corrupt the police in Italy are, and like that there are other gangs that will rise up and like take the power vacuum and whatever. And so like Jonathan would want to destroy it all, Dio would just want to rule it all, and so you meet in the middle where you rule it, but you make necessary community changes. Because it's not like the gang is like just bad anyways, and they show that at the beginning, like with Bruno, when like those old ladies come and they're like, her son has been beating her, like please like help our community, and Bruno's like, yes, like this is my job as a gang member to go teach abusive sons lessons.
Well,
like,
because Bruno also even agrees with Giorno, and he's like, you share my vision, and now you and I can join forces and work together in forcing this vision onto everyone. But honestly, I feel like if Giorno and Bruno just sat down and smoked a little bit, they would be so chill.
Well, once Giorno grows up, he can smoke. He's against selling drugs to children, and he is a literal child, so he's got to be against it for a couple more years. But then on his 18th birthday, Sex Pistols roll him the perfect joint, and they smoke up.
I can imagine all of the Sex Pistols down there rolling it together,
right?
and they're like, number 5!
If they can like load and shoot and control the trajectory of bullets, they can definitely roll a J.
They can at least pack a cone.
Yeah. And I don't know, not to rag on Giorno even more. I feel bad.
No, please.
But I like his stand. I like Gold Experience a lot.
I don't think it deserved to be the strongest stand.
I mean, it probably doesn't deserve to evolve and become literal God.
I don't think Giorno deserves to be God, if I could be completely honest. I don't think that little blonde twerp.
Yep. But so I think it's good for JoJo's because JoJo's a lot of the time is just about creativity and about seeing like what bizarre crap can happen. And so Gold Experience leads itself to a lot of bizarre stuff happening. But I can't think of another word to say it, but this isn't the right word either. But it's like a Mary Sue type stand where just like anytime they get into a situation that's bad, Giorno can just basically instantly make life and create the exact thing they need in any scenario. Like Jolene has to do something string-based, and like Jotaro has to punch things hard, and like Crazy Diamond fixing things is kind of more abstract, but still it has to be fixing things. Whereas Giorno, like when they fight the man in the mirror, Giorno literally like makes that brick into a snake that has the anti-venom poison for Fugo's like poison, and then like later on, I don't know, just I feel like stuff like that. I feel like every time he gets into a fight, he's able to instantly just make whatever living thing can instantly solve his problems.
He's always very easily explained out of it. Like he tries to let everyone else in the gang figure it out, which is another thing in when they're on the boat and everyone is dying because no one can figure out what's going on, and then Giorno's like, mind if I take a crack at it? And then he fixes everything.
Yep.
He's 14, so he doesn't think of it at first.
But I like what he stands for, and I love watching Part 5. Part 5 is like one of my favorite parts, but Giorno isn't the reason that Part 5 is one of my favorite
Giorno
parts.
is not what carries that part. It is more about the members themselves and even the villains. Even the other members of the gang that are going against them.
Oh my god.
And not only that, but I think that Part 5 is made infinitely stronger because Giorno's not that great, but our villain, being Doppio Diavolo, so strong,
So
such
good.
a great thing. So all character that wasn't given to Giorno, I think, was just completely given to King Crimson and everything going on over there.
Yeah.
So that I can give them credit for that.
Also, I think this isn't a real thing. This is just something I wanted to say. I think they get points, or Giorno gets points for being for having the speed running record for winning a part. Like every other part takes months, some variation of months. Part 5 takes place over the course of 8 days. A week and 1 day ago, Giorno was a high school student, and then he is the head of the game that rules Italy. He had friends in high school. Imagine you just start school one day on a Monday and you're like, oh man, that kid that I used to think was kind of cool isn't here this week. And then he's not there the whole week. And then the next week starts, you wake up Monday morning, you turn on the news, and that same kid is now the head of the Italy crime mob.
He's wearing his dark jacket now.
He's like, oh man, it's cool that he's wearing our school uniform, but in black. Like,
it's cool that he's using our school uniform as the uniform for this gang. Okay. So I think for Giorno, I think he ends up on B tier.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I'm glad we can agree on Giorno just being a B tier kind of guy.
And I feel bad, because I do still like him.
He does have great hair.
He does have great hair.
Can you believe that just one day he woke up and it was like that?
It was just like that. Yeah.
That's even funnier about it.
Yeah.
He changes his name. He's not even an actual JoJo. An actual JoJo. He has to change his name to be Gio.
Yeah, I think that his backstory is objectively the best. He had a fucked up child, like literally like the worst childhood. Like his abusive stepdad like beat him all the time. And then one day he did one favor for a mafia member. His life completely 180'd. Everyone in the world was nice to him. He was just a child who was taught very young that nobody is watching his back except for the mafia, and then is like, you know what? The mafia is the solution to all of my problems. Like,
I gotta be the mafia and be looking out for everyone else's back.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh man, like I might join the mafia soon, blah, 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 blah. And then he wakes up one day and it's blonde, and then he's like, all right, this is my sign. Like, now that I'm blonde, I'm a new man and the mafia's mine. Like,
that's the Jonathan in him, that he learns that the mafia is good, and then he has to control the mafia to be the good in the mafia.
Yeah.
That it can be good, but only if he puts himself into it, controls it, rules it, and just oversees all of it.
He's like, the only way to get rid of the few bad apples is to become the harvester.
If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, I guess.
He does do it himself.
And Giorno does it himself with Mista by his side.
Yep.
All right, B tier Giorno.
Yep.
Now, after coming off of God tier Giorno, 14-year-old child, let's go all the way down to our first woman who is somehow incredibly weak.
I mean,
But I have to
she's not
understand.
that weak, is she?
Not that weak. But compared to Giorno, compared to the fact that we just got Giorno, this 14-year-old kid who just like makes life,
becomes God.
and now we have Jolene, and it's just like, yeah, she's in prison, she's a criminal, she's a little Jotaro, what can we say?
Yeah.
I love that Jotaro and Jolene both begin in prison.
Yeah.
They both come in, and we're just like, oh, what did they get arrested for? These little rascals.
What do they do?
These rapscallions.
No, but I think that that's a good point, because that's what I really like about Jolene, is that she has all of Jotaro's like cool, like badass qualities, but then isn't like a stoic like nobody. Like
She's emotional.
Like she's so emotional and so personable, and like I just feel like she's the most quotable JoJo in my opinion. I just feel like half of the crap she says sometimes I could hear myself saying.
She's
like,
one that also I feel like is very close to connect with. Like Jotaro is one of those ones that's really hard to connect with because he's so stoic. He doesn't always give emotion. He doesn't always give thoughts and feelings. But with Jolene, I know exactly what she's thinking. I know exactly how she feels about the people in the part. I know exactly how she feels about everyone around her and about the situations happening to her. And I honestly agree.
Yeah, I love her for it.
Like, I love her for it. I love knowing that all of this is happening. I love experiencing it alongside her in a way that doesn't feel like it was like written premeditatively, but it was written and you're alongside her for it.
I also think that, and I think this has to do with the fact that her stand is her body. So like, she can like interact with stands because her stand is just the string that makes up her body. So she can like punch a stand in the face if she wants to. But like, I feel like watching her fight, she's the most like in your face, like actiony, like most of the other JoJo's just stand there and their stand goes out and does the thing. But Jolene like full on sprints at somebody, like one arm turns into a net, the other arm like she punches you with, and then she wraps you up, and then she lights you guys on fire, and then she
also
for just having strain. Like Josuke and Giorno have crazy abstract abilities that can do a bunch of stuff, and they use them in that way. But her ability is just strain. And for just having strain, I feel like she does some crazy stuff with it.
That's how that's another connection I see of her with Jotaro, because Star Platinum is just like, he punches things. So this is her coming at you with her violence, but not only that, like she can't just throw a stand at you, she's throwing her entire self at you, which is a level of strength that the other JoJo's don't have, which I like seeing in her. Also, it's just that her stand is much weaker compared to Giorno, but as a person, as like moral heart power, she is incredibly strong.
You know, I think I agree with you. I was like second guessing her being like weaker, but now that I think about it, I think she does have the weakest stand, not counting Joseph. The weakest like of the fighting style stands. Hers is probably like objectively the weakest, but like she does not let that stop her.
It's her it's her own resolve and determination, which comes from the Joestar line that keeps her powerful, strong, and fighting.
Love her for that.
I love her for that.
Also, she has my favorite like use of stand and like because JoJo's, like I said, creativity and all that stuff. So there's a lot of moments where something will happen and you'll be like, I have no idea how they're gonna get out of this, and then they get out of it in like the craziest way possible, or like the most like last thing you'd expect. And I think she has my favorite example of that when she's fighting Pucci's second stand, Seamoon, the one that when it punches you, you like go inverted because it reverses your gravity, and she gets punched in the gut. And he's just like, what? And Pucci's like, okay, well, that was it. Like, she's dead. And she's like, no, I'm not, because I made my stomach into a Morbius strip, which is an object that has no inside or outside, so you can't make me go inside or outside. And he's just like, what? And she's like, yeah, take that. Like,
yeah, think about that, dude.
Like, I don't know. I remember reading that, because obviously I read it before Part 6 was animated. I remember reading that and being like, that's so smart. Like, why not? Why the hell not? Why can't she do that? Like,
I think it's really funny also when Jolene outsmarts Pucci, because Pucci is so like well-read. That's like a large thing about him, is that he's so intelligent, and that's what brings him and Dio together, is their intelligence.
Yeah, Pucci is the second person in the entire world that Dio ever respected. The first one being Jonathan, and he respected Jonathan like out of hatred. Like, he was like, even though I hate you and want nothing more than for you to be under my boot, you won't, and so you get my respect. Whereas Pucci got his respect for being like an intellectual and like probably maybe not a no. Honestly, I would say he was an equal in his eyes. When that scene of them like laying on the bed reading books together and looking at the Mona Lisa, like those were just two dudes. Like
Yes.
they were equals. Like
Dio, especially when you see Dio with anyone that he's ever been with, they're never like he's reading with them. He's reading alone in a dark room,
full of cobwebs
in Egypt, in a dark room, and everyone comes in and they're like, Master Dio, they're getting closer, and he's like, send one of the Darby brothers, they'll be fine.
Send that really fat guy who stands in the sun. Like that guy'll do it. Like.
Just send the sun, don't worry, he'll play a mirror trick on them, and they'll be none the wiser. I can't believe Dio really thought he could outsmart the Joestars by just like dehydrating them with a mirror.
It almost
And it
worked.
almost works. It's just equivalent to the baby stand where everyone is like, "It's no way. There's no way." And Kakirin's like, "Please, guys, you just need to believe me.
Please,
It's the baby. It's the baby. I
Baby
swear,
stand,
it's the stand."
like-
And they're like,
Sure,
I
buddy.
don't buy that."
Can
you imagine Dio sitting back and reading with the baby, with the mannish baby?
Yeah, I don't. How did he even hire a baby? Like,
That's another thing. Where did he find this baby? How did he know the baby had stand powers? Did like the baby's mom like put it up? Like it was like
for auction on eBay,
it's like we're looking for stand users. Like it's like a child actor. Like it's like looking for stand users. Can battle like this way. Like.
Listen, it's the same way he convinced an orangutan to join him. Like.
I'm sure that orangutan was already ready to fight. You're telling me that orangutan was angry and clearly like hated his life. He was ready to kill.
He was.
He already had murderous intent. He just needed the stand. He just needed the strength to have a boat. He just needed the strength.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you.
But anyways, Jolene.
Jolene is an S tier JoJo.
I agree. I agree that she's an S tier JoJo.
I think because of her amazing fighting power, her amazing ability to replicate Jotaro but not be Jotaro, but to clearly be raised by Jotaro. That character dynamic between the two of them is so good, especially in scenes where Jotaro and Jolene are talking and you can tell that she has this disconnect from him, but still cares about him and that they still care about each other despite the disconnect that they have from the many years they have not spent with each other.
And also she ends the Joestar curse. She, like, I mean, I guess... Technically, if we're going to be technical about it...
more or less.
Emporio does it. But... she ends the Joestar curse.
That little guy.
Yeah, that little Dodgers player or whatever he is. What is he, a Cubs fan? Like, I forget.
What is he, Koichi Part 2? What, are we just reusing his model?
Yeah, but she does. She because of her, they're like saved. Like she becomes at the end, she gets erased and then comes back. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but the only things that are different about her are the fact that she doesn't have a stand and doesn't know anything about that life, and that her name is Irene anymore because she doesn't get the JoJo curse. Her name isn't JoJo anymore. It's Urjo, if you're gonna go that way. Like she's freed from it. She gets a new name and she gets to live the rest of her life happily. Her and her husband, and they re-meet. They like all their friends re-meet at the end, and they're going to see Jotaro. She frees the entire like bloodline, and she frees them. She frees them so impressively that Araki was like, well, now I have to make a whole new universe to start like talking about because this universe is done. She did too good of a job. Like, I'm done here. Like, I think that's impressive.
She blew up the entire world, and Araki was like, I guess I gotta write a new part now.
Yeah, literally.
I like that idea that he didn't actually have any ideas whatsoever. He just went in. He was like, maybe Jolene will win. And then he was like, hey.
Well, she did it.
Not only did she win, she blew up everything. Yeah. That's crazy.
She's so great. And part 6 is my favorite part of the original universe. So.
Yeah, you have mentioned that many a time, which I do.
And
I have
Jolene
to
is
admit, I
definitely part of it.
I don't know if part 6 is my favorite. That's a discussion for a later episode, 100%. But it's really good.
It's real good.
And it really captivated me. And I think that I enjoyed having the ability to watch it on Netflix, like as it was coming out. Also, because part 5 was the first part that I watched live when it was coming out. Yeah. So I only watched a couple of the last episodes because I was catching up. Yeah. So every JoJo Friday, I was catching up. And then the last JoJo Friday, I watched. So it was cool to have that.
Yeah.
But without JoJo Friday, with just suddenly we're gonna drop 10 episodes.
But she resets the universe, and we have to get a new one. And so that's a good segue into the new universe.
So, new timeline just dropped.
Yeah, new timeline just dropped. Basically, the way it works is parts 1 through 6 happen, and then part 7 starts, and it's a whole new universe, and we go back to the 1800s, which is when part 1 takes place, like late 1800s. We're back there, and we're meeting a man in a wheelchair, but oddly enough, we already know him. His name is Jonathan Joestar, but he goes by Johnny to differentiate himself. Basically,
his father's still George and everything,
his father's
which
still
I love.
George. Yep. The long and short of it is,
And he has a brother named
Nick.
he has a brother named Nick, and he makes a friend with a mouse, doesn't he?
Yes, Danny.
That he names Danny.
Yep.
So he ends up with his own Danny.
Yeah.
So it's still him.
Yeah, so basically that's what happens. Is parts 7, 8, and 9 take place in a new universe, like completely new, but the new universe is basically like heavily inspired by the old universe, and so there's a lot of characters that are like almost one-to-ones, and then all the characters that aren't one-to-ones have heavy inspiration from their original counterparts. So Johnny Joestar is Jonathan Joestar. He's the new universe's Jonathan Joestar, but he's nothing like him. He is like very much, especially at the beginning of part 7, like the anti-Jonathan. He's like, because Jonathan's whole thing is that he was like a rich boy, but like because of that he was like, I should be a hero and I should be a gentleman and I should help people. Whereas Johnny's whole thing is that he was a rich boy and he was like, I'm better than everybody. Like everyone else sucks. Like I am a famous horse racer and that makes everyone else in the world lesser than me. Because that's like his claim to fame, is he's really good at riding horses until he becomes a cripple. I know you haven't read 7, 8, and 9, so I'm not gonna like super go into it. I'll go over it like a little bit. But the thing that's really cool about Johnny is that part 7 is, I actually don't know if this is still true. I don't think it's the longest part anymore. I think part 8 is a little bit longer. But like part 7 and 8 are both much longer than all of parts 1 through 6. Like not all together, but like individual parts.
Which is also definitely a blame to switching not from Shonen Weekly, but to whatever the one is monthly. Whatever it is monthly.
Yeah, whatever it is monthly, that one. My favorite magazine. But no, that's definitely true. But because of that, we get a much longer adventure focused specifically on Johnny.
A much more like well-evolved Jonathan Joestar. Like it's not just part 1 where we were just like very quickly going in, going out of it, but this is like,
no, Johnny has so
you
much
get to
depth
re-meet him
because you meet him as a cripple
who is
like jaded and hates the world and is like, I'm supposed to be better than everybody else and I'm not. I'm a cripple who is worse than everybody else and I blame everyone else for it. But then he like participates in this horse race across the country and makes his friend Gyro, that's his Jobro, and like Gyro teaches him like the new universe version of Hamon.
Yeah, I was gonna say he gets another Zeppeli to train him.
Yep, he gets another Zeppeli to train him. He
New
learns.
Zeppeli just dropped.
New Zeppeli just dropped as well for the new timeline.
Where's the new Speedwagon?
I know.
Where's my new Speedwagon foundation?
I'm missing.
I need a Speedwagon foundation for the next 3 parts. Who's gonna bail them out of everything? Who's just gonna be like a helicopter?
Not me.
Who's gonna bring Iggy in?
I know. I miss Iggy. He's my favorite. Anyways, and so basically, but by the end of part 7, Johnny has regained the ability to walk, like learned what friendship is, and has like a genuine like goal that he wants to accomplish aside from just like being able to walk again and being a rich asshole. Like he just goes through so much and like really like changes, and you just see that progression like really happen, and you see him overcome so many like moral obstacles and like he's just, in my opinion, the most well-written character from like a human standpoint. Like out of all the JoJo's, Johnny Joestar seems the most human.
I really like that Johnny and even Josuke Gappy Higashikata, where Johnny and Gappy end up having a different journey than what all of the other journeys were often that it was like a battle, like you were journeying, like you were going somewhere for a battle, for a big fight. But Johnny and Gappy feel like they're having very personal journeys inside of themselves that they are trying to discover. So the Steel Ball Run being a long journey is about Johnny finding himself. And honestly, Jonathan Joestar had to find himself even when finding Dio. Like he wasn't his entire life became in upheaval, and then he found who he was.
Yeah.
So it's very
Really
interesting that it's a very similar character dynamic. And I really like that Johnny is very different from like the others, where they're kind of like presented with the problem and they're just like, okay, like, guess I'm gonna solve it, like, guess I'm gonna fight that, guess I'm gonna beat that. But Johnny was like, I am horrifically depressed, and I am afflicted with something that I physically cannot even fix. Like, I have a genuine, like, I have so many genuine things that are holding me back, and I need to overcome it. And in doing that, he has to do it with himself and newfound friendship that he also has to let into his life. Like,
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you knew this, but part of the Part 7 story is that, so Johnny has a brother, Nick, and Nick is also a horse racer. And basically what happens is he has Danny the mouse.
Yes.
And his dad, George, is like, get rid of that mouse. Like, you can't have a mouse as a pet. Go get rid of it. Or go kill it or something. And Johnny doesn't want to kill it, so he just lets it go. And it survives. He lets it go into the wild. And then it runs onto the racetrack and when Nick is doing a race, and scares Nick's horse and causes him to buck him off, and like Nick hits the ground and dies instantly. And I don't know how George knew that it was Danny the Mouse's fault, whatever, but he does, and he literally like blames Johnny for it. Like there's a scene where he's like, you should have died, like you were the wrong son died, like.
Yeah, he disowns him.
And he disowns him completely. He has no friends, no family, loses all of his money, and loses his legs.
Which is
Like,
the Johnny, it's the Jonathan Joestar type thing where George was like, you're not my son, like you go to bed without dinner, like, because Dio is much better than you, and now it's like, man, you killed the one that was better than you, now I don't even have anything.
Yeah. But another thing that I like about Johnny, and then about so far, it seems like all of the new universe protagonists, is that they have that Giorno thing where they're not afraid to kill, like, at all. Like, they literally, like, it's like Marvel versus DC. Like, the original universe is DC, and they're like, oh, we try not to kill, and like we make friends, or we retire them, or whatever. And then parts 7, 8, and 9 are Marvel, and they're like, oh, you're my enemy, bam. Like, puts a bullet in him. Like,
Araki was done making friends.
Literally.
He was on the chopping block.
He was like, listen, we did 6 whole parts of making friends.
Of
now we're
friendship.
doing personal journeys, and part of a good personal journey is killing everyone that gets in your way.
Part of your good personal journey is violence and cutting anyone down in front of you.
Yep.
Johnny Joestar, let's rank him. I honestly, though I don't know a ton about Johnny Joestar, I really like the idea of him as an A tier or S tier from what I have consumed of him. So where would you put him?
I think to put him in S tier. I think once you read through his journey and see like how
I've
like,
been doing a lot of research.
really get to like see.
I was doing a lot of reading.
That's good. Reading is good.
Yeah, I thought
But
so.
I just think that like it really like elevates it. Like you really see in part 7 how good of a writer Araki is, and how given like the time to tell a long story, how great he can make a character like really be.
How your character can go through unbelievable changes and not just like Jotaro kind of staying stoic the whole time, but he does something for his family. Like, I get that was the journey, but the journey here is so much more.
Yeah.
And I love to see that. I like that in the most recent parts, it feels like Araki is writing characters that like he wants to develop them. This isn't just a development of the story or of the Joestar line, but it's a development of that character. It's a development of their story and what brings them into this world like this. And I think that's where Johnny really lies.
Yeah.
And I also
completely
think
agree.
that's where Gappy lies. So let's move into Gappy.
So Gappy, I like, but for a completely different way.
Okay.
Johnny, you meet him and he's at his lowest, and you watch him not like climb back up to his peak, but like kind of, because he gets a happy life at the end.
He has
and
to,
like
he builds confidence,
Yeah.
if anything. He's really building up his confidence, building up his self-worth, and building up the idea that he is worth something outside of the guise of, well, my father doesn't care about me, and my brother died in a horrible freak accident that somehow I'm connected with. Like, he is building up his confidence and building up self-love. Yeah. And that's awesome.
It is. But like, so part 7 starts, and Johnny's already at his low point, and then you start to learn about his low point, like at various points as the story goes off, and you hear about all the terrible things that happened to him and that he did, and blah, 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 blah. And you see him like overcome those things, or like deal with traumas and issues related to the specific things that happened to him and like overcoming them. Gappy, when part 8 starts, the way it starts is part 8's Koichi finds him sitting in a hole and pulls him out of the hole, and he has amnesia and is naked.
Yep, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that. Yes, I knew that.
He has amnesia and he's naked.
He can't remember anything.
He can't remember anything. The part 8 story is like, for the main character specifically, I don't want to say like the reverse of the part 7 one, but it's him discovering his past, and as he discovers more about his past, that makes new goals for him, and he like, so, I mean, spoilers for part 8, obviously, but what it actually ends up being revealed is that the main thing in part 8 is a magic fruit that if you eat it, like say my arm was broken, I could eat it, and then like one of my teeth would fall out, like rot away, but then it would cure my arm. It does like an equivalent exchange for things. And
I love Full Metal Alchemist.
yeah, and so the evil group in part 8 is trying to make it so that instead of it affecting yourself, like I could do it so I take a bite of this and then I touch you, and then my broken arm is healed and you get a broken arm. So they're trying to do that. And so the way Gappy is invented is the part 8 version of Yoshikage Kira and the part 8 version of Josuke both get killed by the evil group and then buried in a hole together after they had both eaten the fruit. And so their bodies merge together into one new person. And so Gappy basically discovers this as things are going, as like the story's happening. And he basically just comes to the conclusion that like the people that were important to Yoshikage Kira and Josuke Higashikata are the people that should be important to him, along with like the new family that he's making, like the new friends and new family that he's making throughout the part. So it's basically like
another Josuke who makes friends.
Yeah, he does. He does.
It's
make
about
friends.
friendship, but it's about finding himself and not just making friends with the people around him.
And that's basically how it ends. Is he comes to the conclusion that like he is a new person, but he only exists because of Kira and original Josuke, and so like he still wants to, I guess, like the way like you want to make your parents proud and like do the things that they want you to do, like he wants to do that too. He's like, I wouldn't exist without their sacrifice, so I want to still be able to accomplish their goals and do things for them. And so like, it's just, I think, really good because it's also like a mystery, obviously, for most of part 8 what happened to him. So it's really nice figuring out the mystery alongside Gappy, and then every time a new part of the mystery is revealed, watching him like have to accept it or like change from it or like see where it like pivots his like goals. So he doesn't have a lot of goals in the sense that like he's just like, I kind of just want to get my memories back, like I kind of just want to know what's up. And then as he starts learning what's up, he starts making concrete goals as he gains more information. And then by the end is his own character and is his own person, and even though he still is doing things that Josuke and Kira would have wanted, he's doing them his way, and he's doing other things that they have nothing to do with.
He's a combination of them both, which makes him a new person with new goals.
So I think Gappy's cool for that reason, and I think Gappy fits really well into the story of part 8 because like part 4, it's like a mystery style story. So having part of the mystery be who is the main character who we're following and getting to discover that alongside with the character, I think is really cool.
It's another part where I feel like Araki didn't premeditatively go into it, like it doesn't feel premeditated. It doesn't feel like everything was written like that, but it was written like with you, with the solving of the puzzle, like alongside of you. I have to love that experience. I love that he can do that.
I'm willing to put Gappy into A tier just because of a similar reason to Giorno, where for the first half of the part, he doesn't know anything, so he's a very blank slate, which is good because it allows them to like build upon him the way the story is written. But it also means that for the first half of the story, a lot of what happens is carried by the supporting cast.
Yes.
So I'd like to put him in A because I think for that reason he's not Johnny level.
He's
who
not
we get
Johnny,
a bunch
but
of crap just from the beginning, and he's still really, really good. Honestly, maybe if I reread part 8, I'll put him in S. But for now, I'm happy to put him in A.
I agreed with that because I also, as I was doing my research, I found that I feel like Johnny and Gappy both, I agree with what you're saying, where like they're kind of like opposites. Like one of them is like building confidence and one of them is like building up like who they actually are. So it's both of them finding who they are in this new version of themselves, but one of them is coming like from, they're both coming from nothing but different ways. Like one of them knows everything about his past, but he's starting from nothing. And this one knows nothing and literally has nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we took Johnny and then gave him less, and then we gave you Gappy.
Yeah.
So
well, that only leaves
all in all, A tier.
Yeah, that only leaves JoJo and Dragona.
Our new Giorno who just dropped, and
yeah.
our new Hermes who just dropped.
Yeah.
Twins.
Yeah, they're twins. So they're twins.
Theoretically.
Theoretically, they look like they most seem to inspire Giorno and Hermes for the most part so far, just based off of like looks and like general little bits that we've seen from the first chapter.
Also because it's like, I mean, JoJo is also, I feel like we should keep that in mind that it is Joe-Dio.
Joe-Dio. What?
Keep that in mind.
Only one chapter's come out, so we don't know
Part
what that
9.
means yet, but that's gonna be something for sure. Like
Part 9, we start with Joe-Dio
Yeah.
and his sister
Dragona.
who are listening to Dua Lipa.
Yeah, they get pulled over by cops listening to Dua Lipa.
She's speeding because she's just.
She isn't even speeding.
I know,
but-
I think that it's funny. Like they're like, oh, you just were rocking out to Dua Lipa.
She was like,
and
was
she
I swerving the car? And Jodio's like, I don't know. We were rocking a Dua Lipa pretty hard. Like maybe.
He literally was like, you definitely were. Like you were rocking out, and she was like, ah, damn.
Like we said, there's only been the one chapter, but based off of the one chapter, I literally am completely in love with both of them.
Well, sorry. Based on the first chapter, also we get to see that they are Giorno and Hermes because they're in a Giorno situation, but opposite.
Yeah.
So basically, Jodio is 100% dark Giorno. Like when Giorno dons the dark apparel, that is him. This is where he actually ended up, where he sells drugs to children, and he loves doing it.
Oh my God,
He
yeah.
loves doing it.
He
He
loves
loves
it.
money. He needs that money.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's awesome because Giorno, all he wanted was the betterment of society, and that was more of the Jonathan in him. And now I feel like this is more Dio.
Jodio.
There's like strong Dio vibes here where he's like, well, I'm just gonna get it all. I'm just gonna get all the money. I'm gonna control Hawaii. It's gonna be my island.
Yeah.
It's gonna be my little state.
It's
And
just
that's it.
it's just very amusing to me because most of the JoJo's, like, even if they start off like bad, like JoJo and Jolene start off bad because they're in prison, but you quickly learn that they're actually like good people and whatever. And I'm sure Jodio is a good person or whatever, but like the first chapter has him literally like making fun of some other kid who's like a really good student. Like a really good student walks by and some bully trips him, and Jodio's like, you see that guy? That guy's a loser. And you know why I'm nothing like him? Because I sell drugs.
They've got kleptomaniac friends.
Yep,
like
they've got a klepto friend. They've got a cool little like posse of criminals who
yes,
they all hang
they're
out
just
with.
a group
like,
of criminals.
But okay, so here's actually another thing about Jodio is that as of now, his main like motivation is getting money and like ruling the criminal empire or whatever. But when he's talking about it, when he's talking about the reason that him and Dragona joined the like they don't call it a gang, but joined the gang in the first place, it's because their mother moved them to Hawaii to escape like their shitty life from wherever they were from, like Atlantic City, I think. And when they moved to Hawaii, they like didn't get a lot of support. But then when they started like selling drugs and stuff, basically what happened to Giorno happens to Jodio's mom.
Yes.
Where the whole town is really nice to Jodio's mom because Jodio and Dragona are in the game. And so they're like, oh, those two kids are like gang members. Like we're going to give respect to their family members.
Yes.
And so her name's Barbara, the mom. Barbara has like a very, I know.
Jodio and Dragona.
And Barbara.
And Barbara.
Yeah. So Barbara has like a very, very easy, like not an easy life, like she still works or whatever, but she gets like, she gets a lot of things like she carries, I forget what it is, like she she like sells fruit at the market or whatever. Every day when she walks out her door, there's some kid standing outside of their door waiting to offer to help carry her fruit. And he's there every day out of a show of respect for Jodio. So like Jodio and Dragona being in the game literally saves their mom physical labor. And that's just one example. Like, a bunch of stuff like that happens throughout the town because they're in the game. So even though they do want to be rich and they do like flaunting like their money and they do like being little like asshole drug dealer kids who are like, oh, we're so cool because we are, they're also doing it because they love their mom.
Yes. So at their core, they're still sweethearts. They're still
good
Joe
in
stars.
there. They're still good in
They're
there.
still Joe stars. There's still goodness in their heart. Jonathan is still in there, and he's still just like knocking, and he's like, hey.
I'm from the other universe, but hey. But anyways, so we don't really know enough about them, really. But like,
But for right now,
I want to throw them both into S tier. That's
yeah,
how much
for
I
right now,
love this chapter.
I really want them there. And I think that's just especially because they're so stylish.
Yeah, they
They're
are
so fashionable.
I really,
They're
really
so
love,
drippy.
I love the way they look. I love their stands. Dragona, I feel like we should talk about this.
Yes.
So Dragona is female presenting, but she was a man at birth, for sure, because she has a penis and it's talked about in the chapter.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. But it is. And she uses, because in Japanese they have like, their eyes are gendered. Like when I say I would say I, him.
Yes.
So she uses feminine personal pronouns and presents as a woman. But JoJo only refers to her as Big Brother. Like, and like it's not like he says it and she's like, oh, don't call me that or whatever. Like she like is like, yeah, like I'm JoJo's big brother. Like so the point is we don't know the specifics of what her deal is. Right now, I'm happy to cast my vote into the trans woman booth and have it just be that she's been JoJo's older brother since they were children. So JoJo's the one who's allowed to be like, that's my big brother, and then nobody else is. But we don't know for sure, so more might come out. I like the theory of her being a mahu, which is a thing in Hawaiian culture. It's a third gender that is like literally it means middle, and so they would go by they them pronouns, and they would literally be the middle of two genders, and it's like a real thing in Hawaiian culture that they've had since like before the rest of us put our antiquated gender roles onto them. And so if Dragona's existence was going to be like Araki being like, oh, the story takes place in Hawaii and I'm paying tribute to Hawaiian culture by having a mahu be one of the main characters, I think that would also be really cool.
That would
be
really cool.
We don't know. We're going to have to find out. I'm still happy voting for trans woman for now, but we'll see. Either way, it's sick.
Can't believe I didn't have to be non-binary. I could have just gone to Hawaii.
Yeah, you could have just moved to Hawaii.
That's awesome.
You're lost.
Should have thought of it.
Maybe next time.
Well, there we go. So
anyways.
Officially now they're in S tier, and
I
guess they can
only
go down from there. So
I don't expect them to, genuinely, but I guess they could. But we'll see.
All right. So thank you for joining us on our little bizarre adventure. I've been Gigi.
I've been JoJo.
And we hope you join us again on another little journey across wherever we end up going.
Yeah.
Across the parts, across the manga, across
new universe, old universe, we'll go. Doesn't matter where it is.
Across Araki's mindscape. How about that?
I would love to cross Araki's mindscape.
I wanna exist in there for 1 second.
VIP tickets.
I just gotta see what it's like in there, just for 1 second.
Oh man. Well, thanks for joining us. We hope you agreed with our opinions. Otherwise, you're wrong.
Otherwise, you are quite simply wrong, and it doesn't matter because we're not going to change our opinions.
Anyways, go watch JoJo's, or rewatch JoJo's, or read JoJo's, or reread JoJo's. Do one of those 4 things. And thank you. And agree with our opinions, because our opinions are objectively right until we decide that they're wrong, and then they will still be right. But when we decide that, we'll update you. So don't even worry about it. You stay right there and you wait for it. All right. All right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.